Ahead tonight, the country's longest-serving commissioner of police is laid to rest.
World Women's Day is observed here in the country.
And the Comets from QC made a push, but did the SAC Big Red Machine hold on for 25th straight BAIS's track championship? Find out. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you with us.
The Royal Bahamas Police Force and the country bid farewell to the third Bahamian Police Commissioner today.
It was during a full military service for 67-year-old Bernard Kenneth Bonamy that mourners remembered the many significant contributions of the patriot and consummate police officer who was lauded as the embodiment of the force's watchwords of courage, integrity, and loyalty. Andrew Knowles reports.
In a service given to only a few, the third Bahamian Commissioner of Police, the late Bernard Kenneth Bonamy, was laid to rest. The top brass and members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force honoring him with a full military service on Friday. The Governor-General, Prime Minister, members of Cabinet and Parliament, along with members of the judiciary and Bahamians from all walks of life, flooded St. Francis Xavier Cathedral to salute the longest-serving commissioner in an independent Bahamas. Prime Minister Perry Christie says Bonamy's life is another that demonstrates the magnificent story of Bahamians.
Bernard Bonamy was a good and faithful servant of the Bahamian people, whose many fine contributions and outstanding example have secured him a lasting place of respect among the nation builders of the modern Bahamas. Recording his history and sharing his story is important not only for generations of Bahamians, but for us here today who simply may not know that story.
Over his 38 years of decorated service, he's credited with reforming the force into a modern-day law enforcement agency. Under his leadership, the number of police stations grew. He initiated the Police Staff Association as well as began the computerization of the force. As commissioner, Prime Minister Christie says Bonamy made his most significant contributions to policing and to national development. But he served during one of the most difficult times in the history of the country, the drug trade.
The record would reflect that he brought to the fight against these menaces an uncompromising degree of integrity and incorruptibility, which set the standard for law enforcement officers at that time, and for that matter, for future generations of law enforcers.
This courageous young commissioner dared to stand, and he never flinched, despite the dangers to himself and his family. Yes, they actually put a price on our heads. It is a monetary figure.
Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade told the congregation how Bonamy's influence and character left an indelible mark on his life. He says the force owes him a significant debt of gratitude.
I stand here today. I recognize that a great part of my past and my future lies before us. My past, because had it not been for Commissioner Bernard Bonamy in my life, I might not be here today, and certainly not as the Commissioner of Police. My future, because I had an opportunity to learn from the best, and I was able to observe up close and personal a leader who modeled the behavior and spoke volumes by his actions and good deeds.
Now officers will lead former Commissioner Bonamy's body back to police headquarters. From there, he will be taken to the Lakeview Cemetery, where his body will be interred. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Well, today is being observed as International Women's Day. One observation marking the day was a Women's Day Forum hosted by the Ministry of Social Services and Community Development and the Bureau of Women's Affairs.
Now, the theme for Friday's forum was Let's End Gender-Based Violence. Officer in charge of the Women's Affairs Bureau, Christine Campbell, explains the significance of the event.
Violence affecting men and women. We know in the Bahamas, as it is throughout the world, women are the main victims of it. And unfortunately, men are the perpetrators. So that's why we were really keen to have men here to hear from them. What is it that is happening? Why is it that men are doing this? And then to hear from them, what can be done here in the Bahamas? What can men coming together can do?
Now, during the day, there were breakout group discussions on what gender-based violence is, the role of the police, healthy relationships, and domestic violence. Dr. Robin Roberts from Caraman, Bahamas, facilitated one of those sessions. He says there are physical, mental, and abusive instances of violence against women which seem to be escalating. It's something, he says, men must take responsibility for, since they're more often than not the perpetrators. He says it's important to change mindsets so women can be viewed as helpmates or the better half.
Why is this so? What is it that happens to men that bring on this type of a dysfunctional behavior? Okay. Now, from my perspective as a person who has a great interest in looking at male issues, I think this is just a part of this whole problem of what it is that drives us to be mad.
In our first look at weather, moderate to heavy swells expected to impact most of the eastern islands of the Bahamas over the weekend, but outside of our studios just now, we have a few clouds, temperatures 70 degrees, relative humidity 57%. Your winds out of the east-northeast at 6 knots, barometric pressure 1,019.7 millibars. That's 30.11 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned, temperatures around the family of islands, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
Thanks, Basil. Well, a man was killed and a woman left wounded after two gunmen forced themselves into a residence in Gamble Heights this morning. Police say the culprits killed the 34-year-old man on the spot. The 37-year-old woman is in stable condition. And we're told the shooting took place shortly after 2 o'clock this morning when the men invaded the home on Sunrise Road. The victims are believed to be Jamaican nationals. Police are appealing for public assistance in solving this crime. You can contact them at 919-322-3333 or 322-3334 or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS.
In other news tonight, the 4th Bahamas National Agriculture, Agribusiness and Marine Resources Expo officially opened yesterday evening. This 2013 Expo is being viewed as the biggest and best. Prime Minister Perry Christie officially opened the event at the Gladstone Road site.
Bigger and bigger in a multitude in terms of size.
Progressing towards food security is one goal that the Agribusiness Expo showcases as being possible. It's the premier event on the calendar of the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources and Local Government, as well as the Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation. It provides a venue for farmers and other trade specialists to showcase their goods. But Prime Minister Perry Christie is hoping the expo can be one way to make inroads into the country's food import bill that stands at $500 million.
The challenge to our country and to those who are dealing with our economy is to see the extent to which we are able to cut in to that import bill. Can we grow in niche markets, not 500 million, 20 million?
Minister of Agriculture, Marine Resources and Local Government, V. Alfred Gray, says the program has grown tremendously in the last 8 years.
We have over 170 vendors exhibiting things at this expo. That is remarkable when you consider 50 to 170. That is almost a fourfold exponential growth over the last 8 years.
Food stalls, souvenir and straw goods, as well as petting pens with pig, sheep, and goats make up the booths on display. These vendors say they hope their wares can have national appeal.
Go beyond this table to the whole of the Bahamas and worldwide.
We had people from Atlantis who asked me to call them so they can set an appointment with me to bring the products from the sea. People from Bahamas, and so we have like people from the cruise ships and the yachts. And so everybody said I should take the product out of my house now.
I have created wall hangings, chokers, and these are also made to order. Some figurines that you can put in your home. You could get whatever color you would like or whatever post you want it on.
The challenge has been thrown out by Prime Minister Christie, and he says that the next time around he hopes that this event has a permanent home so that visitors and locals alike can support what's grown locally. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Jimenita Swain.
The Bahamas Electricity Corporation is said to be making inroads as it moves to reduce its financial losses and bring down the cost of electricity for consumers. Executive Chairman Leslie Miller says already the corporation has seen a drop in its overtime payments. Miller says overtime, which previously averaged $1 million a month, is down to $462,000. And he says the goal is to make that figure even lower to around $300,000. The BC chairman, who was addressing Rotarians, explains the action necessary to pass on energy savings to consumers.
The only way to bring the cost of electricity down, first way is to get cheaper fuel and not have these fluctuations in the marketplace. BEC this year will have to sign a contractual agreement to procure 3 42 megawatts engines for Clifton. That means that Clifton will then generate about 90% of our electricity in New Providence. Once that takes place, you will see our bill go down by no less than 20 to 25%. And we use Blue Hills just as a standby station. That's what needs to take place to enable us to do that.
Now, Mr. Miller also pointed out why the fuel surcharge passed on to consumers is so high and what's being done about it.
Well, yes, fuel surcharge is directly what BEC pays for fuel. BEC gets its fuel from a company called Shell West that is located in Barbados. Right now, outstanding amount that we owe them is about $86 million. Last year, BEC spent $386 million on fuel. $386 million per year is what we spend on fuel. The board is now looking at trying to procure a long-term contract with an oil-producing entity. If you're spending $385 million, you're in the big leagues. There's no reason to deal with Shell, Esso, or Texaco and spending that kind of money. You should really be dealing with one of the major producing countries in this hemisphere.
In other news, a group of young men got some life lessons from National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage during an all-boys conference this week. Dr. Nottage advised the youngsters to set goals and remain focused on achieving them.
You have a talent, or more than one talent, that if you have any ambition, you can transform that talent into a career, into a way of life, into a job, if you like, and into a responsible adult. Too many of our young boys are falling by the wayside. How many of you know?
Also on hand for the occasion, BTC's Public Relations Senior Manager Jerome Sawyer, who offered this advice.
Be afraid to be the first. You can be rewarded for it. As he was standing up, somebody else was mumbling, trying to distract him, but he continued. Life is that way sometimes. You attempt to do something and somebody tries to distract you. But if you continue, there is a reward.
Well, still to come tonight, a conflict over a business venture gets heated in Parliament. The fallout between two members coming up.
The Queen's College Comets tried to stop history. Could they hold back the sacked Big Red Machine from winning 25 straight championships? Highlights coming up. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited, fueling growth for people.